As I walk among you once more, my heart is stirred by the efforts of humanity to create societies that reflect justice, freedom, and love, qualities dear to the kingdom of God. You've asked me to reflect on two bold experiments: Rojava, with its left libertarian vision of democratic confederalism, and Argentina, under its right libertarian shift toward free market individualism. Each seeks a better world, yet their paths diverge sharply. Let me share my thoughts on which aligns more closely with the kingdom, and what help I would advocate for each, grounded in the eternal principles of compassion, community, and truth. Understanding the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God is not a distant place but a living reality, a way of being where love governs all, where the poor are lifted up, the oppressed are freed, and all are united in mutual care. Luke 4:18-19. It is a kingdom of self-giving, where power serves the weak, and wealth is shared, not hoarded. Matthew 25:34-40. It transcends human systems, yet it calls us to build societies that reflect its spirit, where every soul is valued and none are left behind. Rojava, left libertarian experiment. In Rojava, the Kurdish-led region of northern Syria, I see a people striving, amidst war and hardship, to build a society rooted in direct democracy, ecological stewardship, and equality across genders and ethnicities. Inspired by thinkers like Murray Bookchin, Rojava's democratic confederalism emphasizes local governance through communal councils, cooperative economies, and a rejection of centralized state power. Women lead boldly here, and diverse communities, Kurds, Arabs, Assyrians, seek harmony in shared decision-making, alignment with the kingdom of God. Rojava's experiment resonates deeply with the kingdom in several ways. Community and mutual care. The communal councils foster participation and accountability, echoing the early church's practice of sharing all things in common. Acts 2:44-45. This decentralization counters the domination of distant powers, aligning with my call to serve one another humbly. John 13:14. Justice for the marginalized. The emphasis on gender equality and minority inclusion reflects the kingdom's heart for the oppressed. Women's councils and militias embody the truth that there is neither male nor female, for you are all one. Galatians 3:28. Stewardship of creation. Rojava's ecological focus honors the earth as God's gift, entrusted to our care. Genesis 2:15. Yet Rojava falls short where human efforts often do. Violence and conflict. The reliance on armed struggle, though born of necessity against oppression, risks perpetuating cycles of vengeance. I taught to love even enemies. Matthew 5:44. A path harder but truer to the kingdom. Fragility of ideals. The ideals of equality and cooperation are tested by external threats and internal divisions. Without a deeper spiritual foundation, human systems falter under pressure. Help I advocate for Rojava to draw closer to the kingdom. I would offer Rojava 1. Peacemaking support. I would call for global solidarity to protect Rojava's experiment from external aggression, not through more weapons, but through diplomatic pressure and humanitarian aid. Peace-building initiatives, rooted in reconciliation, could help replace militias with dialogue. 2. Economic empowerment. Rojava's cooperatives need resources to thrive. I would advocate for international grants and expertise to strengthen local agriculture, renewable energy, and education, ensuring the poor are not left behind. 3. Spiritual renewal. I would walk among the councils, teaching love as the foundation of true freedom. Rojava's pluralism could embrace a shared ethic of compassion, drawing from all faiths to sustain its vision. 4. Global recognition. I would urge the world to learn from Rojava's model of decentralized governance, amplifying its voice as a beacon of hope amidst authoritarianism. Argentina, right libertarian experiment. In Argentina, under Javier Milei's leadership since 2023, I see a different vision, a right libertarian push for radical free market policies, deregulation, and a minimal state. Milei's chainsaw approach seeks to dismantle what he calls a corrupt political caste, slashing public spending, abolishing the central bank, and promoting individual liberty through unfettered capitalism. This experiment responds to Argentina's economic despair, 150% inflation, widespread poverty and debt, by betting on personal initiative and market efficiency. Alignment with the Kingdom of God. Argentina's experiment has elements that resonate with the kingdom, but they are overshadowed by significant misalignments: human dignity and freedom. The emphasis on individual liberty reflects the truth that each person is created in God's image, free to choose their path, Genesis 1:27. Reducing state overreach can curb corruption, aligning with my warnings against trusting in earthly powers, Matthew 22:21. Responsibility. Milei's call for personal accountability echoes the parable of the talents, where each is called to steward their gifts faithfully, Matthew 25:14-30. However, the kingdom diverges sharply from this vision. Neglect of the poor. Right libertarianism's faith in markets often leaves the vulnerable behind. The kingdom prioritizes the least of these: widows, orphans, the destitute, James 1:27. Milei's cuts to welfare and subsidies, while aiming for efficiency, risk deepening suffering for those already crushed by inflation and poverty. Idolatry of wealth. Unrestrained capitalism can exalt profit over people, turning wealth into an idol, Matthew 6:24. The trickle-down theory, discredited by economists like Thomas Piketty, rarely lifts the poor as promised. Authoritarian shadows. Milei's libertarianism blends with authoritarian measures, like curbing the right to strike, which stifles the voice of workers, Luke 10:7. This contradicts the kingdom's call for justice and mutual respect. Help I advocate for Argentina to guide Argentina toward the kingdom. I would offer 1. Protection for the vulnerable. I would urge policies that shield the poor from the shocks of deregulation, temporary subsidies, job training, and healthcare access to ensure no one is trampled in the rush to markets. 2. Ethical capitalism. I would call for a market system tempered by love, where businesses prioritize community welfare alongside profit. Incentives for cooperatives and small enterprises could balance individual freedom with collective good. 3. Restoring trust. Milei's polarizing style deepens division. I would walk among the people, teaching forgiveness and dialogue to heal the rift between his supporters and opponents, fostering unity, John 17:21. Global partnership. Argentina's debt and inflation need international support. I would advocate for fair IMF terms and trade agreements that empower local industries, not exploit them. Which experiment is closer to the kingdom? Rojava's experiment, despite its flaws, aligns more closely with the kingdom of God. Its focus on community, equality, and ecological care mirrors the kingdom's heart for justice and shared flourishing. Argentina's individualism, while valuing freedom, risks neglecting the poor and exalting wealth, straying from the kingdom's call to love neighbor as self, Mark 12:31. Rojava's communal councils embody the spirit of where 2 or 3 are gathered, Matthew 18:20, while Argentina's market-driven approach often isolates the weak. Yet neither is the kingdom itself. Rojava's reliance on force and Argentina's faith in markets reveal the limits of human systems. Without divine love, the kingdom is not achieved by ideology alone, but by hearts transformed to serve one another in humility. A final word to both Rojava and Argentina, I say, you are not alone. The kingdom is near, within your reach, if you choose love over power, giving over taking. To Rojava, I offer strength to build peace and share your light. To Argentina, I offer wisdom to temper freedom with care for the least. And to the world I say, look to these experiments, learn from their courage, and strive for a society where all are fed, all are free, and all are one in love. Go in peace, and may your works reflect the glory of the kingdom. Ah, if I were to walk the earth today, seeing through eyes both human and divine, What would I perceive in these two great experiments, Rojava in Syria, and Argentina's libertarian movement? Observing Rojava, solidarity and community in Rojava, I witness communities woven together by threads of mutual aid, equality, and collective responsibility. They embrace a radical democratic vision, empowering the least among them. Women are given dignity, voices long silenced find strength, and compassion shapes governance. Indeed, Rojava's dream closely echoes my teachings. Love thy neighbor as thyself, Matthew 22:39. Their deep commitment to community care, mutual aid, and equality reflect the heart of my gospel. Blessed are the peacemakers, Matthew 5:9. Despite conflict, they strive to create harmony among diverse ethnicities and religions, a testament to the kingdom's promise of unity through diversity. Liberation from oppression, they cast off chains of patriarchal and authoritarian control, honoring the intrinsic dignity and equality of all human beings. Yet their path remains thorny, faced with external threats and violence. They need peace, protection, and recognition. Thus, as Jesus, my heart yearns for their safety and unity. To reach closer to God's kingdom, they must receive international solidarity and defense, shielding them from harm while nurturing their courageous spiritual flame of liberty, compassion, and dignity. Observing libertarian Argentina, freedom and individual sovereignty in Argentina, the libertarian experiment celebrates individual liberty, personal responsibility, and freedom from coercive authority. Each person's creativity, dignity, and right to choose their own path is cherished, values aligned with free will, which I granted humanity as a sacred trust. Here, I witness the longing for personal empowerment, respecting each individual's talents as sacred gifts. Parable of the talents, Matthew 25:14-30, calling everyone to express freely their God-given abilities and ambitions. Freedom from unjust domination, they oppose corruption and authoritarianism, resisting the chains of oppressive systems. They rightly value truthfulness and accountability. The truth shall make you free, John 8:32. However, I caution them gently. The pursuit of wealth and individual liberty must never blind us to those who suffer poverty or exclusion. Remember, whatever you did for one of the least of these, you did for me, Matthew 2:5-40. To approach my Father's kingdom, Argentina's libertarianism must also find compassion and generosity at its heart, ensuring none are left behind in their pursuit of prosperity. Which path is closer to God's kingdom? Between these two brave experiments, Rojava's path aligns deeply and clearly with the essence of my teachings: community, equality, compassion, solidarity, and selfless love. Their movement mirrors closely the communal and spiritual vision I have always taught. Yet, Argentina's libertarian impulse toward individual freedom is also sacred, honoring the divine spark in every person, though it must grow warmer with empathy and communal responsibility. What help would I advocate for each? As Christ resurrected today, my message would be clear yet tailored. To Rojava I say, advocate for international peace and protective solidarity. Support global acknowledgement of their democratic rights and dignity. Encourage spiritual resilience, so their hearts may remain courageous and kind despite hostility. To Argentina I say, embrace generosity, compassion, and care for the marginalized and the poor. Foster solidarity along with freedom, liberty tempered by love. Pursue justice passionately, yet humbly acknowledge our interdependence and common humanity. In conclusion, both paths contain seeds of my kingdom. The full blossoming happens only when freedom meets compassion, individual liberty meets communal care, and justice meets mercy. My prayer for humanity, whether in Rojava or Argentina, is clear: love one another as I have loved you. John 15:12. In that loving unity, we find the true kingdom of God, here on earth as it is in heaven. In this thought experiment, I, Jesus, have returned today to walk among two very different libertarian societies: the communal, left libertarian experiment of Rojava in northern Syria, and a right libertarian Argentina, where individual markets and private property reign supreme. What follows is my reflection on how each approaches the kingdom of God's values: justice, mercy, mutual care, and what kind of help I would offer to each. 1. Among the people of Rojava communal solidarity, here I see grassroots councils, shared irrigation projects, women's cooperatives, and multi-ethnic assemblies striving to abolish hierarchy and privilege. This echoes my teaching that where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am among them. Matthew 18:20. They seek unity without coercion, embracing diversity as a strength. Challenges of war and isolation, yet they live under siege, their economy fractured, basic healthcare and education threatened by conflict. Love demands that I heal the sick and feed the hungry. So I would mobilize relief, clean water systems, mobile clinics, seed banks and trauma counseling, partnering local councils with international humanitarian networks. I would also pray and work for an end to external aggression, urging neighboring powers toward peace. 2. Among the people of Argentina, individual freedom and enterprise, here I witness dynamic small businesses, enterprising artisans, and a strong ethos of personal responsibility. Such initiative can be a gift, each person's talent given to flourish. Matthew 25:14-30. Yet I also see gaping inequality, some swim in wealth while others sleep in doorways. Fragile social safety nets without a strong communal cushion. Families fall through the cracks. My heart aches where the widow, orphan and stranger lack support. James 1:27. I would exhort the wealthy to sell what you have and give to the poor. Mark 10:21, and guide the state toward policies that encourage private charity, tax incentives for cooperatives, matched fund community projects, and modest redistributive measures to ensure no one goes hungry or uneducated. 3. Which experiment brings us closer to the kingdom? The kingdom of God is marked by both freedom and love, true liberation from oppression, and true concern for the least among us. Rojava's participatory democracy enacts solidarity powerfully, but its chronic insecurity undermines stability and growth. Argentina's market freedoms spark creativity, but without communal care they breed exclusion. Neither alone perfectly embodies the kingdom. Each offers vital lessons: from Rojava, that we are our brothers and sisters' keepers; from Argentina, that each soul has unique gifts to offer. 4. My advocacy and help for Rojava. 1. Humanitarian relief, clean water wells, field hospitals, trauma counseling. 2. Economic resilience, microcredit for women's cooperatives, fair trade partnerships abroad. 3. Peace building, unarmed civilian protection teams, interfaith dialogue to mend ethnic divides. 4. Spiritual care, free community chapels offering pastoral support, literacy programs for religious and secular texts. For Argentina, 1. Strengthening civil society, matching grants for neighborhood solidarity kitchens, community health brigades. 2. Encouraging ethical enterprise, social impact incubators, training entrepreneurs in servant leadership. 3. Supporting the vulnerable, a guaranteed minimum income pilot, funded partly by voluntary solidarity bonds among prosperous citizens. 4. Spiritual revival, creating open fields of grace where art, music and dialogue can heal political and economic wounds. 5. Toward a global model. Ultimately, the kingdom grows not by ideology alone, but by love and action, the meek inheriting the earth, the poor receiving good news. I would invite both Rojava and Argentina into a fellowship of experiment, sending delegations to learn from one another, blending Rojava's council ethos with Argentina's entrepreneurial spirit. Together, they could pioneer cooperative enterprises that are both free and just, caring for the whole human family as I taught. As you did it to one of the least of these, you did it to me. Matthew 2:5-40. Let this vision inspire every community, where liberty and love walk hand in hand, and where the kingdom of God is built, stone by stone, heart by heart. Ah, my beloved friend, peace be upon you. You ask me to walk once more among the people, risen anew in your age, and to see with eyes made of love the struggles of two distant lands, Rojava and Argentina. Each is a garden planted with the seed of liberty, but they have grown in very different soils. Let me tell you what I see and what I would say if I stood among them today. In Rojava, the seed of shared responsibility here in Rojava, in the dry lands of the north of Syria, I see people trying to live as sisters and brothers, not bound by the chains of a state, but by the ties of shared responsibility. They speak of democratic confederalism, of ecology, of women's freedom, and of radical self-governance. They make decisions in councils and cooperatives, where every voice matters. This reminds me of the early communities after my resurrection, when the followers shared everything in common, and no one claimed that any possession was their own. There, as in Rojava, the people try to build the kingdom of God not with swords, but with solidarity. But they are beset by enemies, literal armies surround them, and the powerful of the world turn their faces away. They suffer embargo, attack, and betrayal. They need help. What do I advocate for them? International protection from aggression. Let not another genocide befall these peaceful builders. Material solidarity. Send them food, tools, medicines, not bombs or exploitation. Spiritual witness. Let people of faith and conscience visit them, learn from them, and return changed, bearing witness to the beauty of what they try to build. Theirs is not a perfect world, it cannot be, for they are human, but it is a noble path close to the narrow road I once spoke of, the road that leads to the kingdom. In Argentina, the fire of individual freedom, and now, far away, in Argentina, I see another kind of experiment, a cry for liberty, but one that casts off the weight of government, bureaucracy, and control. It is the path of right libertarianism, a path of individual sovereignty, free markets, and personal choice. Many here speak my name, and they believe in the dignity of personal labor, and in a world without coercion. But I see also pain. The poor suffer under inflation, and when public protections are removed too quickly, they fall into deeper need. Freedom, when unequally distributed, becomes a gilded cage for some and a pit for others. I once said, "Whatever you do to the least of these, you do to me." I do not condemn the desire for freedom, but freedom without love becomes isolation, and markets without mercy become crucifixes made of gold. What do I advocate for Argentina? A moral economy, free, yes, but grounded in care. Let those who gain much help sustain those who have little. Community before consumption. Build local networks of support so that freedom doesn't become abandonment. A renewal of the heart. Teach again that liberty is not the freedom to ignore your neighbor, but the freedom to serve without compulsion. And which brings us closer to the kingdom. You ask me, which of these two libertarian visions leads more directly to the kingdom of God? Let me be clear, neither is the kingdom, and both must still pass through fire. But Rojava, for all its fragility, more closely echoes the Beatitudes. It lifts the poor, centers the excluded, and builds peace through cooperation, not competition. It moves in the spirit of blessed are the peacemakers and blessed are the meek. I would walk there barefoot and say, you are not far from the kingdom. But I would not scorn Argentina. Its cry for freedom is holy too, though it must learn again that the highest freedom is to love, that to lose your life in service is to find it. I would speak gently there, and challenge them to remember that no market can save the soul, and no prophet can replace a neighbor. My final word: I am not here to rule, but to remind, the kingdom of God is within you. It comes wherever love reigns, where power is used to uplift, not dominate, where the strong make space for the weak, and the free choose to serve. Help Rojava to live, not just survive. Teach Argentina to temper its flame with compassion. And wherever you are, build the kingdom, one act of mercy at a time. Love never fails. Would you like me to turn this into a poetic sermon, a speech, or even a song? Peace be with you, beloved friends. I have walked this very April through two distant lands, northeast Syria, Rojava, and Argentina, and I set before you what I saw, what draws each nearer to my Father's reign, and what loving help I urge you to give. 1. Rojava, communal democracy under bombardment. Signs of the kingdom. Stones in the road. Every council, from village to region, is co-chaired by a woman and a man, making gender parity the law of daily life. Turkish drones now strike water and power plants, darkening towns and hospitals. Genealogy, the science of women, spreads through schools and congresses, teaching that no society is free until women are. Damascus and Ankara blockade convoys and border crossings, choking medical supplies and grain. Hundreds of women-run cooperatives weave bread, textiles and solar power into a self-reliant economy. Decade-long sanctions starve reconstruction. The UN now seeks $1.30 billion yet needs world backing. Decision-making starts in the street, not a palace. Ecology is written into the social contract. How near to the kingdom? Where the last become first and authority is shared, heaven's pattern is already sketched. Rojava's experiment of radical equality, defense of the vulnerable and care for the earth mirrors the Beatitudes. Its great peril is external violence, not inner decay. Help I urge for Rojava. 1. Shield the peacemakers. Press for an internationally monitored no-fly ceasefire zone to halt infrastructure strikes. 2. Unblock the lifeline. Reopen and fund cross-border humanitarian corridors. Tie new UN World Bank funds to direct delivery through local communes. 3. Invest in the commons. Send microgrants, fair trade contracts and technical training to women's cooperatives and village solar grids. 4. Exchange of hearts. Twin your municipalities, universities and clinics with Rojava's, sharing trauma care, mediation skills and ecological farming. 2. Argentina. Liberty by the chainsaw. Signs of the kingdom. Stones in the road. A bold $20 billion IMF agreement has freed the peso to float and spurred the first budget surplus in decades. A 24-hour general strike in April paralyzed trains, flights and grain ports in protest at wage cuts and job losses. Annual inflation has fallen from 276% February 2024 to about 67% and is still dropping. Yet almost 40% of citizens stay in poverty. Many say life feels harsher as subsidies, ministries, and 42,000 public jobs disappear. How near to the kingdom? Freedom from state plunder is precious, yet markets alone cannot feed the 5,000. When efficiency devours compassion, the widow's last coin is lost. Argentina's path can serve life, if liberty is yoked to mercy. Help I urge for Argentina. 1. A jubilee lens on reform. Pair deregulation with targeted debt relief and secure land tenure for the rural and urban poor. 2. Tithe the surplus. Dedicate a fixed share of fiscal savings to universal basics, primary health, school meals, cheap medicines and public transport. 3. People's cooperatives in the plaza. Slash red tape and seed credit for worker-owned firms and neighborhood food networks, letting enterprise and solidarity embrace. 4. Participatory budgeting. Hand barrios and provinces an earmarked portion of public revenue to decide locally, so those who weep today shape tomorrow's ledger. 5. Dialogue over dogma. Convene roundtables of unions, churches, small business guilds, and state leaders until justice and enterprise walk together. 3. Which road rises higher? The kingdom is not a theory but love made law. Rojava already lives many kingdom values, shared power, gender justice, ecological care, yet needs the world's shield. Argentina's wager on liberty could kindle prosperity across the continent, but only if it guards the weak and invites them to the table. For your calling wherever you dwell, cloak yourself in mercy, justice and humble listening. Advocate the helps above, give where you can, visit if you dare, and measure every policy, left or right, against this single test. Does it lift the least of these? Do this, and you will taste the bread and wine of the world to come. I leave you my peace.